Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is supposed to be a small talk. I don't know, the script's pretty long on this one. Usually I don't even do topics, and we got topics. We're going to hit the economy update that CG put out. It was a good response. Very quickly on that one. And the new raid has prompted a lot of speculation on my end, and now that some of the dust has settled, I want to start to parse what I think this means for the game right now and its future. So the status, the importance of Jabba, the next GL, and then for our usual wrap-up. CG has heard the community issues with the update, and their response I think addresses the majority of the meaningful problems from the currency and the store. There are a couple remaining issues like the get, but the major ones are addressed and has alleviated the majority of my concerns. The back to gel and the eyeball salvage removes what would have turned into a gate, which I overlooked in the previous video. The Cairo gate, though, is what I thought CG had intended, and with this update they have cemented that. Here you will be gearing your rosters so fast that the pressure on Kairos is going to grow exponentially, and you're going to feel that way more than you do right now. The shards being purchasable with Mark I tokens fixes the issue for new accounts and late game players who ignored characters like Jawa Engineer, and that's avoided that potential crisis. And it's also going to help us players like me with a bunch of extra shard shop currency once we have finished some of the other farm with gear. The Mark III tokens being added to the earlier crates just cements my argument that most mid-game guilds, as long as the majority of the guild can field 5 teams, should go after this raid, regardless of the crate. My guild had the tier 1 crate. I thought it was a non-issue then, and now with this change, this will probably convert a few more into the perspective that I laid out. Now that we've had a few days, I'm starting to consider all the consequences and downstream impacts of this new raid system on top of the last talk video where I laid out my argument for the gear economy. And here's where I think we are now and where CG is setting us up to go. So let's lay down the foundation. Raids. They are now critical for overall player engagement, not just guild engagement. This is the most important game mode now. Previously, including players like me, it was join, never play, let the payout happen. Raids were for SLKR players. I did some minimal stuff. Raids have now become the #1 method that we will use to build our rosters. Before, gear acquirement was largely passively done through raids, territory battles, whatever other game modes, and supplemented with currency from stores. But because we are now able to actively choose the gear we need, they are our highways into relics and road into high relics. And that must be prioritized because all of our roster development is going to be fed from here now. Jabba has been elevated. He must be a priority for nearly any player who doesn't have him, but definitely from the mid-game and higher, and a critical high relic for those who do have him. Jabba will be how we access the late stages of the game and how we perform better in territory battles, and players who prioritize Jabba will climb faster than their opponents who don't in Grand Arena. He will be a compounding investment. High relics are done through this raid, and Jabba is going to help you get the bulk of those Mark III tokens. In terms of new accounts, I've never been a fan of the GL rush method. This has me wavering though, and while I think you'll hear most people say rush Jabba, and that's fine, the bigger issue for new accounts in Jabba though is going to be Jedi Knight Luke and the guild event tokens. Get has dropped in access because of these raid changes, and unless Hermit Yoda and Wampa become farmable elsewhere, become farmable with those Mark I tokens, might happen. That's a very long project that will need to be balanced with other squads along the way. CLS, Starkiller, Afra, and more could all be obtained in the same amount of time because of the relaxed gearing if the Hermit Yoda and Wampa shards don't become farmable in another method. And for new accounts, I think there will be benefits to stay within the Heroic Sith raid longer because of just how many squads and factions that a new account will need to work on. Having a holding pattern there is just going to allow a new account to catch up faster, even if they already unlock Jabba. It'll allow them to go after other squads. I don't think there's going to be a great benefit for a new account to rush into the crate raid, but that's for new accounts. For mid-game players, I laid this out in the last video. There's a timestamp for it, but the overall idea that I feel about it, and with the Mark III token change, I feel about it even more. Once you have a majority of players in your guild who can field 5 squads, then the crate raid is going to make a lot of sense. The tier 1 crate is fine, and if you have the majority of your guild playing at just the 300k level 0 level, that's the tier 2 crate. Now here's what I really wanted to get to. Speculation about what this means for the next Galactic Legend. What this raid system means is that whoever the next GL is, I will be making that character a priority. I'm a 3 GL player. I could go back to some of the older GLs. I'm very close to them all, but I think it's a safe bet that the next Galactic Legend will be one of the main factions and characters to do well in the next raid. Which also means whatever characters that may be in a related faction are also candidates to be preemptively worked on. But the real big thing here, where we start contemplating what this all means, is contrary to what the community thinks and to all the mistakes CG makes, they do plan ahead. They just overlook a lot of things. And this is what I think they've done. Jabba was a surprisingly cheap, affordable, fast to obtain Galactic Legend for longtime players, with the previously mentioned Jedi Knight Luke being the only real speed bump. The question is, why did they do that? It was counter to everything CG has done before. Galactic Legends got harder, not easier. And I think more than anything, it was for this raid change. CG had this system laid out in their plans where Jabba would be a key component, and they made him accessible for the player base because of the seismic change that this raid system was going to be on the gear economy. The next GL, however, and probably the Leviathan, I think CG just gated with Jabba. The next Galactic Legend will be harder than Lord Vader, and performing well in this raid is going to be a prerequisite to timely unlocks of the next Galactic Legend and the Leviathan, as well as preparing for the next raid. So if you haven't already done it, switch to Jabba, be farming those characters, because the next stages of this game are going to be dependent on this. I don't know why I bury my main points deep into videos. It's a dumb thing to do, so I'm going to reiterate it one more time here. This raid is going to gate the Leviathan and the next Galactic Legend. It's going to be important to be participating in this raid at a pretty high extent. But now for our usual wrap-up, the free-to-play gearing of my roster, and this is the gearing from April 11th. Okay, for this week, what did I do? I titled this one about Marin. Oh, this is when okay. So Chieftain recently became farmable at this point, so probably a week prior, and we had been farming him, taking him up to 4 stars. He's been a great low-star character. Like, I take all of my marquees immediately up to gear 11. It's one of the ways that my approach is a little different, and that's what we're seeing here with Marin. I am taking her up, applying her Zetas. She's a great low gear character. Really boosts what the Night Sister faction can do. And I don't recall, well, I guess it doesn't really matter anymore, gear. But in terms of Kairos, I think she was a 3 Kairo character, which is about average. Like 2 to 3 is average. The bad character for Kairos is Saw. Saw's a 4 Kairo character, and when I say that, I mean below gear 11, because that's how I've always framed and think about things, because gear 11 is that good floor before things get difficult. And everyone's going to have a roster like mine now. It's by accident. Like, I spent years doing this, and it's just going to happen now. Zori was considering the Ami, because I've been throwing her on defense even at low stars, and she just messes up everybody. Everyone underestimates her. Taking Palps a little higher, make my Starkiller squad better. And I'm making incremental progress towards Sith Eternal Emperor. I've been doing this for a long time. Haven't been rushing it. I don't want it to affect my Cal Kestis stuff. I might even wait. I'm probably going to wait until we know what is happening with the next GL, but Kyber 2 has been pretty difficult for me, to the point where We're probably hitting the threshold if I don't have datacrons where another GL might become necessary. But so far, we're approaching 3 months continuously in Kyber 2. I mean, we've fallen to Kyber 3 for a match, but each bracket has been a Kyber 2 bracket. Now, B2 here, I was looking at, I don't think I'd take him higher. I was doing a little trench prep. Yeah, so I give him a little bit, but I'm low on certain materials. But these are the kind of decisions we won't have to make anymore. I forget why I was looking at BB-8. Certain things weren't working for me. Like I can't do the JTR Radis counter. Slowly working towards Visas. Just making her a little stronger, but I'm not ready to relic her because I gotta be careful with Kairos. Like you saw the Kairos I just threw down on Marin. She's still not at relics. But for 5v5 with a Mara J Datacron, yeah, I'm gonna have her. This is when I finally relic my Dark Trooper, who's been on my 2 relic list for basically as long as he's been in game. Fantastic character, but he's solid at Gear 12. Troopers work with him at Gear 12. But he's just a character worthy of relics and high relics. Yeah, this is just we're gonna go for Cal Kestis right away. I think Trench. Do I take Trench up anymore? I may have waited. Oh, Savage, I just felt I want him to have better damage output, so I brought him up to 6 because it was cheap. We're going to wrap it up there. Thank you to all of the new subscribers. I really do appreciate it. We've been working on just grinding out this channel for a long time, so whenever we get those moments of growth, it really is appreciated. But thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone. Be excellent to each other. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.